大変お待たせ
Thank you very much for waiting. The time has come to start the meeting of Hitachi Limited regarding the acquisition of ABB's power grids business. First of all, I would like to introduce the speakers to you. Toshiaki Higashihara, President and CEO of Hitachi Limited. Higashihara-san, please. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for coming to our announcement of the acquisition of ABB's power grid business. Thank you very much for your attendance, indeed. I have just signed the contract for the acquisition. Regarding this acquisition, there are three things that I am very happy about. First of all, global number one power grid business will be acquired by Hitachi. Second point is that in the 2021 midterm business plan, we have been able to show the direction for this new midterm business plan. Thirdly, 36,000 employees in the power grid business will be introduced into the social innovation business, and together we will be promoting the solutions for overcoming issues in society. These three areas have been covered by this acquisition. That is the reason why I'm very happy. Now I'd like to talk about the background as well as the substance. Currently, Hitachi is promoting the social innovation business. When we talk about social innovation business, we are referring to utilizing digital technologies to establish social infrastructure on a global basis and to enhance the quality of life of people. This was part of the 2018 midterm business plan. It was at the core in terms of business direction. Because Hitachi have more than 100 years of operation technology, OT, in terms of control as well as operations and products. And more than 50 years, we have been focused on IT, accumulating technologies. In one company, we have both OT, IT, and products. This is the strength of Hitachi. Bringing to bear the strength in the 2018 midterm business plan, we have been accelerating the social innovation business. And profit is shown here in the 2018 midterm business plan. Of 8.0% in terms of operating profit margin was the target we have set forth with. And we have become a lean organization to achieve this goal. At the end of April this year, I have talked about the progress made in the midterm management plan. And in the last year of 2018, in that year, 8% of operating profit margin will be achieved without fail. That is what I announced. And also, I have talked about the next midterm business plan of 2021. I set forth with showing the direction in the new midterm business plan. The key word was to further evolution to a global company. That commitment was conveyed to you. With the power grid business acquisition, I have been able to show the direction. And I think this is a specific example of what we are trying to achieve. In terms of direction, we would like to resolve social issues as well as enhance the quality of life of people. These are the two objectives that we are pursuing in our business. Please refer to the next page. Now, I would like to talk about the 2021 midterm business plan, the direction going forward. In this plan, in the 6 areas we'll be pursuing business. First area is mobility solution, the railway business, and smart city, life solution, industry solution. In terms of industry and distribution, will be the core in this area. Energy solution as well as IT solutions in terms of finance, as well as for public sector. These will be the 5 pillars. And in 2016, in May, we have announced the IoT platform, as well as a problem-solving solution, Lumada. And this will be the basic platform, and we have been pursuing this business in that way. Now, with the acquisition of the power grid business of ABB, the energy platform will also become a platform, a horizontal platform, which can be utilized in various areas. For example, in the area of mobility, as well as life solution, industry solution, and IT solution. There are data centers in IT solutions. Energy solutions can be deployed in this domain as well. Next page, please. Now, let me talk about what we are going to acquire. Revenues is to the tune of $10 billion, 1.1 trillion yen. In terms of EBITDA, it's $1 billion. There's and 36,000 employees are in this company. In terms of the relationship with ABB, in 2015, in November, Hitachi ABB HVDC Technologies was established, which was a joint venture company. But from prior to that, we have maintained very good relations in terms of collaboration. Therefore, we will be strengthening this environment further. That is the reason why we have decided to acquire the power grid business. And by acquiring the customer base, we would like to further expand the business going forward. And energy platform establishment will be accelerated. And for the 5 business domains, we will deploy the energy platform. Next page, please. Now, let me talk about the power grid business in this diagram. From the power generation to the demand, we will be providing T&D products as well as transformer facilities will be provided. We will also have the connectivity to renewable energy. So the distributed energy will become important. Stable frequency as well as stable voltage in the communities must be maintained. Therefore, in that regard, it will be also meeting the needs of distributed energy source, and also by bringing to bear artificial intelligence, we can also forecast the weather so that demand and supply can be matched. Next is the 4 business areas that we will be acquiring from ABB. The global market share is shown here. In most areas, the company has a #1 share, and by combining the Lumada IT platform of Hitachi, as well as the collaborative creation process of the customers will be brought to bear as well. And therefore, for the current ABB customers, high value-added solutions can be provided as a result of this acquisition. At the same time, Hitachi's global customers will benefit by providing these energy solutions of ABB. That is how we would like to expand the business going forward.
Earlier, I've discussed 5 business areas, and ABB and Hitachi Digital Technology will lead to expansion of these 5 businesses. And I would like to discuss each phase. First, with Hitachi's DSM, demand-side management capability, and distributed power capabilities, we will expand energy solutions business. And at the same time, diagnostics of a potential breakdown of the equipment can also be introduced, and AI and big data analytics can offer value added to existing customers. This is the outline of the acquisition. Business to be acquired, or business that was acquired, is It has revenue of 10 billion and 1 billion profit or operational EBITDA. And as for the structure, first, ABB will spin off power grids business, and ABB and Hitachi will establish a joint venture. And ownership ratio of joint venture is 80.1% for Hitachi, 19.9% for ABB. And after the establishment of the joint venture, after 4 years, Hitachi has an option to purchase the remaining stake. So it's a two-stage concept. And valuation of acquired business is 11 billion and about 8 billion equity value. And 80.1% of ownership ratio is calculated. And at the time of the JV establishment, the $6.4 billion of investment will be the amount required. As for 11 billion, EBITDA will be about 9.3 times. Next, about financing. Acquisition funds will be prepared using cash on hand and borrowings. As for financial soundness or solvency, our current estimate is such that the impact on the consolidated balance sheet in terms of total asset will be increase of 1.9 trillion yen and goodwill about 590 billion yen. And intangible assets of about 510 billion yen. On an annualized basis, amortization expense is expected to be about 30 billion per year. At this, with these estimates, a debt-to-equity ratio of less than 0.5 times will be maintained, and we would like to make sure to secure financial stability. Furthermore, after the acquisition, there will be synergy, and we plan to increase profits with the synergy, and teams will be established. And before the establishment of the joint venture, we will make utmost effort to realize synergy. Today, agreement was signed regarding the acquisition. And in the first half of 2020, by the first half of 2020, ABB's power grids business is to be carved out. And we also plan to obtain clearance relating to competition laws and start the joint venture. In the first half of 2020, we expect to close. And in 2021 midterm plan, it will be about halfway through the midterm plan. And by that time, this power grids business should be put under the control of Hitachi. So that is the outline of the acquisition. This time, the acquisition of power grids business from ABB will mean that Hitachi will expand its social innovations business globally and will make further contribution globally. We will make utmost efforts towards that direction.
We would like to move to the Q&A session. And in addition to Higashibara, CEO, we will also have Mr. Nishino EVP answering questions, as well as Mr. Kato, General Manager of the Financial Strategy Division. Now, the first half will be allocated to the media, and the latter half will be allocated to the investors and analysts. Now, please wait for the microphone to be brought to you, and please state your name and affiliation before asking your question. First of all, we would like to open the floor for questions from the media. Question. I have several questions to the CEO. Now, regarding the amount of acquisition, compared to our railway as well as IBM business, I think it is very high. It is likely to be 3 times these amounts. What is your recognition about this high amount of acquisition? And in terms of financing, you said that you were using cash at hand. Please talk about the ratio thereof. And for the acquisition fund, please elaborate. As for the acquisition fund, mentioned 6.4 billion. And compared to previous acquisitions, the amount is very large. However, cash is already being generated by this business. In terms of EBITDA, it's about 110 billion yen. And we will multiply that with the digitalization to expand the business. It isn't as if we have to make capital expenditures from now on. That is not the case. So it is a cash cow with further business expansion. And therefore, the ABB power grid acquisition with a global base is a very important. I think it was a good acquisition by us. Second question. Mr. Higashihara, when you talk to the media, you have been alluding to possible acquisitions. But I think you mentioned this in the context of 1 trillion yen. But have you depleted your resource for acquisition? Answer, it isn't as if we have to pay this now. And by the closing in 2020, that will be the cash outflow. Therefore, it isn't as if this is the end. There are other aspirations. And 2021, Hitachi must become a global top leader. That is more important. Of course, we have to be conscious about the risk. And the asset and risk will be taken into consideration, and we have to have a buffer. But what is important is when we finish the midterm management plan, we have to position ourselves as a global leader. That is the vision that we are pursuing, and M&A will be determined by timing as well, and therefore we will take into consideration risk as well as continue operations. So M&A will continue. Yes.
Next question, please. A question. What I would like to ask you is that today you've discussed energy platform. On the other hand, Hitachi also is focusing on nuclear power generation as well. According to recent media report, in the United Kingdom for new built nuclear power plant, there is a report that suggests that this may be put on hold and be frozen. So could you discuss the actual status of the nuclear power new build in the United Kingdom? And as you build energy platform, the acquired business asset Brown Boveri, this is a distributed power system, and on the other hand, you also have a nuclear power system. So how are you going to maintain balance? As for Horizon project in the United Kingdom, currently we are seeking investors, and there are counterparties, and therefore I cannot discuss much in details. But in June, as I discussed in investor relations meeting, Hitachi is one private sector company, and there is a limit to the extent of risk that we are able to own. And if it is economically feasible and reasonable, we will implement the project. But if not, then as you suggested, the project may be frozen, but this is not decided yet. But before the end of the 2019, final investment decision will have to be made. We have promised that we will make FID by the end of 2019. So at the latest, go or no go will have to be decided before the end of fiscal 2019. That remains unchanged. And regarding energy platform, rather than power generation, in terms of energy platform, this time it is an energy platform mainly consisting of distribution and transmission. As for distributed power system, it may include solar power and wind power, and these are affected by the change of the weather. And there is also a demand-supply balance that changes, and the frequency and the voltage may be affected. And by combining with the storage battery, we would like to be able to supply electricity in stable fashion, and this is needed everywhere in the world. We would like to build a platform to enable this and provide such a solution. And ABB is very strong in direct current business. Globally, a direct current transmission is a means of minimizing transmission loss, and it's a very important technology. And so regarding these technologies, we believe that we can have a joint technology platform in terms of stable supply in railway and in mobility and in industry. In many areas, it can be useful, and that is why power energy related platform is the word that I used. Next question, please.
では2列目、こちらの前から3列目の方お願いします。
Question. I have two questions. The first question is as follows. Listening to your presentation, it seems that this is a good transaction. It seems like a good buy, if you will. And please elaborate the reason why that is the case. And what are the inherent risks? Please identify any risks that you have identified, and how will you deal with such identified risks? Answer. I think it was a good acquisition indeed, because globally it is number one or number two business in many domains. And to be able to, this is something that we cannot develop overnight. Therefore, the M&A is very important to achieve our aspiration of becoming global number one in 2021, to become a global leader. It is a very good acquisition for us. And EBITDA multiple, if it was 15 or 20, we may have hesitated, but it was 9.3 times. Therefore, we felt that it was a reasonable acquisition price. And that is the reason why we have decided to go through with this acquisition. Now, inherent risks. HVDC, as well as transformers, will mean that construction will be required. EPC and construction will be required. There could be concerns in terms of risk in these areas. But for thermal power plants as well as the nuclear power plant, EPC as a percentage is much higher. In terms of power generation, more than 50% is the construction cost. But for transformer stations as well as HVDC, it's limited to around 10% in terms of EPC, but there is EPC risk. And for new builds, there will be risk. But on the part of ABB, they have already accumulated a good track record and experience, and improvements have been made in terms of EPC projects as well. We have been engaged in discussion on this point, and I believe that the risk is reduced. And therefore, there is no major construction that we have to be concerned about. Project management improvement has been made. Therefore, in 2018, results have shown that in the past, EPC could have been subject to negative factors, but 10% profit has been generated in 2018. Therefore, I believe that risk has been mitigated. Thank you. I have a follow-on question now. In terms of transformers, they are ahead than Hitachi. They're top leader. They have 36,000 employees. There is a company in Hamamatsucho. They have acquired a major company, but the PMI was not successful. But in the case of Hitachi, you seem to be very confident in terms of global HR management as well. But non-Japanese people seem to be have very high pride. How are you going to manage them? Answer. With ABB, as I mentioned, in 2015, in November, we have established a joint venture already. And in terms of relationship between the two companies has a track record already. It's not a different company altogether. And having said that, for major power grid, with 1.1 trillion in terms of scale is the company that we are going to be acquiring. So we have to scrutinize the content. In terms of PMI, by 2020, we will set up a project team comprising Hitachi as well as ABB to facilitate PMI. We are now in the process of deliberation. We have now a contract in place, and therefore immediately we will set up an organization to facilitate this process. Thank you.
Any other questions, please? Yes, next question, please. With the acquisition this time, globally in many regions, I believe you will be able to engage in broader scope of businesses. Where are the countries or markets where you expect the fastest rate of growth? And at the same time, in Asia, China, Southeast Asia, India included in Asian market, what is the growth expectation after the acquisition? Currently, ABB's power grids business is about 30% North America in terms of revenue, and EMEA or CIS, Europe is about 30%. The remaining 40% is from Asia, according to my understanding. In that sense, Asia going forward is a region that is expected to grow further, and in emerging markets and in industrialized markets, the needs are different, but we have to focus on both. In emerging market, infrastructure development, the true physical infrastructure, including transmission lines and building substations. So we have to do the physical infrastructure development. But in industrialized countries, ancillary control to provide stable voltage and stable frequency is more important as distributed power source increases. There are different needs, and therefore, even in the U.S. market, there are potential growth opportunities, and in Asia, we also see huge potential opportunities.
アジアの中で特に
In Asia, are there any markets that you're particularly interested in terms of potential growth? Is the microphone on? This is Nishino speaking. As you correctly pointed out, India, and well, in China, we have to think about various matters, but China is also growing, and recently we also are seeing increase in business volume from Thailand. And we are able to receive orders despite some discussions about budget constraints. So we can expect growth in Asia.
ではその後ろの方お願いできますか。
A question. Regarding operating profit margin, I have a question. In the 21 midterm management plan, 10% and above is the target you have shared in spring of this year. In terms of power and energy, for March 2018 is rather low, but 10% will be enabled by this acquisition, according to your explanation. For power and energy, do you think that 10% and above by 2021 can be achieved, according to your view? Answer. No, we have already formulated direction, but in terms of budget formulation, we have to allocate numbers, and we are preparing currently. We are considering a double digit, but in the beginning of 2020, this will come on stream, and from the end of the second half of 2020 to 21, it will depend on PMI. And we will decide the direction by 2020. what kind of revenue impact will be clarified in 2020. In terms of, there is going to be 30 billion in terms of intangibles, amortization of intangibles. And for IT, collaboration with Hitachi may require investment that we have to consider. And these are cost factors that must be taken into consideration in formulating the numbers specifically. Question? Now, it's about 8 billion in terms of capitalization, and it's 80% of that will be acquired. And 4 years' time, it will become a consolidated subsidiary. At that time, that's around 900 billion. 100% acquisition will require 900 billion. Is that correct? Answer: yes, that is our view currently. But the value is likely to be enhanced significantly. And when there is incremental value generated, 19.1% is probably not the same as present value. So it's 80.1, 19.1. We should have a good sharing arrangement for the stakes. Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, next question, please. A question earlier, Mr. Higashihara, you've responded to the question on UK nuclear power business. Mr. Nakanishi, in the regular press conference at Keidan Ren, said that the current structure has come to a limit, and he mentioned that he has communicated to that extent to the UK government. Under the current framework, is it sustainable? What is your view? I'm Nishino, responsible for nuclear power. Thank you for your question. As it was pointed out earlier, and Mr. Nakanishi, I believe, has made a comment. What is occurring in reality is that all parties are making efforts, including UK government, Japanese government, and Hitachi. And there are complexities because this involves negotiations. What we would like you to understand is that although this is a difficult negotiation, we haven't given up and we are continuing to negotiate.
お時間になりますので、報道
So this will be the last question for the media. A question. ABB's power grid business is what I would like to ask about. In terms of revenues, it seems that it is flat, or if anything, slightly decreasing. So, even though the grid market is growing, why is it remaining flat? Do you have any concerns about that trend? And for Hitachi Lumada as well as IT Solution, by combining with these strengths, what kind of operating profit margin do you think you can acquire? Is it going to be low teens, or is it going to be higher teens? Well, answer. I would like to ask Mr. Nishino to supplement later, but in terms of power grid business size, or the market size, is about 10 trillion yen. And on a CAGR basis, it is growing by 4% annually. So I think the market will continue to grow going forward. And Mr. Nishino, there is no doubt that it will continue to grow, inclusive of renewable energies. But the top line for this company is not growing because in the past 2 to 3 years, structural reform efforts have been underway, and the loss-making business have been reduced. That is the reason why revenues have remained flat. That is the reason why we have been able to have this pricing. But we have to focus on the EBITDA growth and the substance of the business as well. As already explained, significant structural reforms have been implemented to come up with the current business structure. Furthermore, by combining with Lumada, what kind of synergies can be brought to bear is very important as well. we have started from the matter from May of 2016, and now solutions have become solidified. We have about 500 case studies already that can be used in common. For example, maintenance and repair is a good case in point. The equipment failure prediction can be made, and that means that the spare parts can be prepared before the repair is required. This function has been enhanced very significantly. In the past, we have accumulated know-how in this area. And in terms of T&D equipment, we would be able to bring to bear know-how in this area as well in maintenance and repair. By combining the two, added value can be generated. I hope that will suffice.
投資家の皆さんに移る前に1点補足
Before taking questions from investors, there's an additional point in the Q&A. There was a comment that investment decision will be made before the end of fiscal 2019 regarding UK nuclear power business, but that is rather than fiscal 2019, before the end of calendar year 2019, that the decision FID will be made. Next question from investors, please. A question. I have two questions. First, about Power Grid's business of ABB, the current business performance, revenue, if there's a breakdown between service and hardware, and out of total assets, what is the rough breakdown? 8.4 billion total asset. What is it comprised of? Can you answer that question? The details for fiscal 2018, the revenue, the breakdown between service and hardware. We do not have that information at Hitachi. We don't have that information, unfortunately. And we also have the breakdown of the total assets. Currently, we are clarifying the information, including the spin-off. We are working on the details right now. And therefore, as of now, we do not have information regarding the breakdown. As soon as we have the information, we will inform you. We are in consultation with ABB, and we have had much discussion already. It is not because of the difference of views, but because of technicalities. It is taking time. And as soon as we have the information available, we will inform you. Thank you. The second question is on slide 2. In the medium-term plan description that was given before, it was mentioned that there will be focus on 4 areas: front platform, and product. So it seems the matrix has changed somewhat. So is this picture going to be the basis for the next medium-term plan, or is this a picture that is prepared just for this presentation? In the medium-term plan, this is an indication of the direction we would like to take, although the decision is yet to be made. For example, mobility solution and life solution are currently in the same category of urban, and industry solution, industry logistics, water, that is industry solution currently, and energy is in energy and power, or power energy, and IT solution is in finance, social, healthcare. Instead of these business categories, we would like to make the departments or business distinction clear. If we are able to separate in a way similar to balance sheet and profit and loss statement, that is what we are discussing if it's possible to do. There's not a major change, but these 5 areas in terms of revenue, we would like to be able to show the revenue from these 5 areas in easy to understand fashion on the balance sheet. And that is the direction we would like to aim at. And where everything fits is difficult to determine. For example, energy, maybe platform covering all of the areas, and mobility solution can also be a platform at the same time. So platform, solution, services, in what way should we draw the metrics and disclose information so that it will be easier to understand for the investors? We're thinking about this, and we would like to disclose according to probably these 5 major pillars and the growth and strategy for each of the 5 pillars. If we disclose information, we felt that that might be an easy to understand way for investors. It is not that we have decided to adopt this way, but this is the direction under which we are thinking of disclosure of information going forward.
A question. I have 2 questions. Regarding EV, there's 11 billion and 8 billion in terms of corporate value. That means that net debt will be a result of a subtraction. So 11 minus 8. But EV has expanded significantly, but 6 billion, and power grid is about half net debt, accounting for half of the net debt. So that seems to be the structure. May I understand this to be correct understanding? So that means a working capital requirement is very significant. Other question is regarding the financial impact on Hitachi. What you're going to pay is 8 billion, and that's 80.1% of 8 billion. And in terms of net debt will be consolidated. It will come on your balance sheet. Is that correct? Yes, inclusive of loans, we'll have to deal with that. And on a net basis, it's about 330 billion. Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Yes, next question, please. Thank you for taking my question. I have 2 questions. The first question is, from earlier on, the market will be growing at CAGR of 4%. But when distributed power system is also included, I'm having difficulty imagining what the system will be. And renewable energy is discussed at COP24, and Paris Agreement is now being discussed. So the direction is to introduce renewable energy, but in what area will battery be used, and in what area integrator will be used, and so in what area do you expect to grow as a result of the acquisition of ABB? Could you discuss in more depth? Is it going to be a following win for you? In what way? I would like to better understand that, because I'm having difficulty understanding that. The high voltage, concentrated power, thermal power, and nuclear power, the construction number is decreasing. So I do not believe that there will be extremely high voltage system that will be built going forward. So it's difficult to understand that HV high voltage business will be growing after the acquisition. That is necessarily the way that you put it. I think there are both ways. Distributed power system will increase, as you pointed out, but there has to be a mechanism to control all of the distributed power system. And within ABB, they have a footprint across the world. In the world, they are providing maintenance, after services, and operational services. So that's a very valuable resource. And on the other hand, as Mr. Higashihara explained, with the solar energy, can we supply all the necessary electricity? That is not the case. So overall mix of energy will have to be ensured in terms of a stable supply on the platform. And therefore, we have to send the energy, electricity, with a high voltage over a long distance. And that is more in demand in the developing countries. And when we look at the demand, demand is growing. And it's not that one or the other only will grow for the immediate future. There will be a growth from both, and we will be providing added value in the growth sector.
すみません。2点目はですね、
The the second question, this may be an overlap with the earlier question, but in terms of competitive landscape, you've said that your business will be world's number one, but market share is only 10%. So whether it is easy to obtain de facto standard in the world, it may not be the case. And I think Chinese companies are also emerging as strong player. So how do you understand the competitive landscape? As you correctly pointed out, market share is 10%, but I think it's actually larger than 10%. And the second place is far behind. So the competitor is not close behind number one. There's another company in Germany, and this company is number one, and the rest are far behind, to be more precise. What this means is that in terms of cost competitiveness, and in terms of ability to provide services globally, there are differences in capabilities, and that is why there is a difference in terms of ranking. And globally, the market share is 10%, but in certain markets, there's a predominant strength, and market share is much larger. To put it differently, there's room to grow the market share substantially. And I think if you look at the numbers, you will be able to understand gradually. Other competitors have a much smaller share. So effectively, there are only two major players. And the current numbers, we do not think that that is the limit. As we have been discussing with digital technology, we would like to grow share.
中国の脅威という
What about the threat from China? Are you concerned about the threat from China? That is a very difficult question. In China, there are very strong companies. ABB has a joint venture in China. Hitachi also has a joint venture in China. Are we going to compete head-on, or are we going to collaborate with them? There are these two choices. We have been able to have a direct discussion, but we will have to engage in such discussions going forward. Abe administration has various scenarios under which Japan and China will cooperate in, and therefore, rather than just compete with each other, there's possibility of collaboration and a major mission of Hitachi to improve quality of life in the world. So I think there are many opportunities that we can discuss. So in that sense, Hitachi overall has more than 1 trillion yen of sales from China. Out of 9 trillion or so sales, more than 1 trillion comes from China. And on top of that, the grid business from ABB will be acquired. So in that sense, rather than competing, co-creation and global development of the business through collaboration will be a better approach. That is my view. So in businesses other than power grids business, we have to create an environment for co-creation and competition.
Question. I have two simple questions. First is regarding orders received as well as the revenue trend. What is the current state? Please confirm once again. Now, orders received for ABB is minus 12%, was last year's record. Q1, Q2, Q3, and 1,511. So it's going to double digit now. But revenues for minus 4, minus 8, and Q3 was plus minus 0. So in terms of structural reform has been implemented, that is the reason why the orders received have declined, or are there businesses that are not growing and they have been reduced, and that is the reason why it is reverted back to positive? Please elaborate further. Answer. This is not about our business, so it is not appropriate for us to answer. But with respect to what you have mentioned, and according to what we know, we understand that the structural reform is underway. And the result, other numbers mentioned, So high-risk projects have been suspended and stopped. But that, as far as I can comment, it is not appropriate for us to comment about the counterparty. Now, in terms of the orders trend, as a result of structural reforms, we are seeing this trend. And EBITDA numbers have improved because of the impact of structural reforms. Question. So 2020, in the beginning, you'll be acquiring the shares of the company. So fully consolidation will be March of 21. Yes, fiscal year 21. So that's April of 21. So it will be the full year will be at that time frame, but for the first half, there could be half year impact as well.
Next question, please. Thank you for taking my question. I have two questions. Several times this was already discussed in the Q&A session, but about the amount of acquisition, what is the actual amount of cash out? I believe the subsidiary joint venture will be consolidated in the first half of 2020, but you have discussed equity value so far, but net debt 9.6 billion, including net debt 9.6 billion. Is that the correct figure as far as acquisition value is concerned? The answer is yes, but to be more precise, the 80% at 114 yen per dollar is 670 billion, and the net debt is 3 billion, so it is 330 billion yen. Thank you. And the second question is about the risks. Because of this mergers and acquisitions, what is the biggest risk that you anticipate? What are you concerned about the most in terms of risk? Basically, we believe that major risks have been addressed through the negotiations, and as of now, we do not envision any large risk. A team will be established, and 100 manufacturing locations and about 200 distribution or sales locations will be reviewed in closer scrutiny. We have taken the overall look, but they will be reviewed closely. So in the first half of fiscal 2020, we may come to a conclusion as a result of the finding, but we do not see major problem as of now. Business restructuring has been carried out extensively in the past few years by ABB, and we were able to learn about the efforts made by ABB, and they are reflected in the numbers. And we understand that they have made a steady progress in business restructuring, so we do not anticipate any major risk at the moment. There was a question regarding breakdown of the revenue. I understand that you are not able to discuss that now, but due diligence is underway already before the signing of the agreement today. Is that the correct understanding? Yes, that is correct. Yes, of course, we have carried out the due diligence because it's such a large acquisition. But there are various backgrounds, and it is not appropriate for us to discuss the numbers. We had consultations with ABB, and because of possible impact going forward, we have made promises to disclose numbers sometime later in some areas, and based on that commitment, we are discussing in this way today.
A question. I have two questions. First question is regarding the T&D performance comparison with ABB and Hitachi. For ABB, in terms of structural reform, you said that you cannot comment about their business. But in terms of mid to long-term plan, 10 to 14% target has been announced. Currently, they have reached 10%, so it is still a work in progress, according to our understanding. But in the mid to long term, is there headroom for further margin improvement? And for Hitachi T&D, last year, I understand that you have broken even. Now, in order to improve the profit, there seems to be some delay in improving profitability. But post-acquisition of ABB, how do you intend to improve the profitability of the Hitachi business? Answer, regarding ABB, first, as you have rightly mentioned, the target is 10 to 14%. That has been announced. And as already mentioned, due diligence, we have confirmed that it is now reaching 10%. And as already explained, it is still there is still more to be done, and there is still 1.5 years to go. So we will be engaged in structural reforms together, and it will be implemented by the current management. But digitalization will be added, and other areas can expect synergies. And in fact, synergy projects have been underway with ABB from the past, and ABB is using the people of Hitachi, and the reverse is the case as well. Therefore, we have plans to improve profitability further going forward. As already mentioned in the presentation, project board will be established. There is competition law issues, so there are areas we can do and areas we can't. But we will be selective in this process so that we can enhance the profitability above 10%. That is a scenario that is being contemplated. What about Hitachi? I'm sorry that you have concerns, but this is not an IR meeting, so I don't know how far I can comment on this. I would like to ask my colleague from finance to provide their comments regarding the future direction. As already mentioned today, the ABB team will be working together in formulating the business plan, and we will consider the Hitachi's business direction going forward. There is nothing that we can share with you at this point in time. And question, in terms of cost synergies, the production basis optimization could be contemplated inclusive of this. What will happen to T&D business of Hitachi in the context of ABB? That is what we are considering. And in terms of collaboration, in terms of cost synergies, have been subject to discussions as well. So we have already embarked upon this initiative. So I think it will be front-loaded impact. R&D direction as well as production base are being contemplated as we speak. Therefore, we will be able to harvest the impact in a steadfast manner.
2点目なんですけど
Actually, I have a second question. Regarding Lumada, digital solution will be enhanced so that the synergies can be brought to bear in the top line. And 1 trillion revenues will be added. And in delivering Lumada, in terms of human resources for Lumada, is there a shortage, or do you have enough resources? Do you have to add further? Answer. There are 2 points to be made. In global regions, as well as customer needs, in line with this, we have to secure human resources accordingly. At the same time, globally, we want to make sure that Lumada can be facilitated. Application core can be provided, and the usage method can be improved, and that will mean that the human resources will increase. They don't necessarily have to be specialists. Solutions are clear, so effective utilization can be enabled, and that is the context in which we have to secure human resources. So in terms of control of Lumada solutions as well as availability of resources globally will have to be taken into consideration. It could take the form of collaboration or joint ventures depending on the regions. So region by region, according to the customer needs, the format of solutions will be determined.
We have almost run out of time. We would like to take one last question. No further question? Then we would like to close the meeting today. Thank you very much for coming.